What's up, guys? Today we're talking about the beautiful state of Florida, also known as the Sunshine State. We're going to be talking about VA condo approvals in this state because a lot of people have been reaching out to us through our videos trying to purchase condos and just running into a lot of roadblocks with the VA home loan. And the thing is that Florida, as of 2023, was the number 2 volume state for VA home loans at 43,850 loans conducted in that state last year. And this year, it's also a leader. Now, the point of this video is to really educate you on this VA approval process, the waiver process, what goes into condominiums when it comes to using your VA home loan, and why there's so much stigma around it, because I'll tell you guys that every day we get some type of pushback from either lenders saying that no, this can't be done when a veteran is trying to use it. And then we also have the real estate community that's also pushing and saying, well, no, this can't even be done. And it's kind of unreal to me, but it exists. So this is why we do videos like today. So the point of what we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys the handbook, and I'm going to go some of the restrictions that the VA does have that would cause a condo to be denied. Because just because you can get a waiver in a condominium, it doesn't necessarily make sense for everybody. Just because of how easy it is to use the VA loan with a condo, it's also a little bit dangerous in that sense as well. And when you look at it from a conventional loan standpoint, right outside of the VA, Florida does have its own separate rules because of how people treat condominiums in Florida. So again, that in itself has a separate rules in it. So let me first show you guys the VA Home Loan Handbook. Now the VA Home Loan Handbook is what lenders go off of when looking at condominiums, the requirements that they have. So I'm going to show you what the requirements are, and I'm going to also show you what the condo approval process looks like, and then we're going to kind of break down some of the things that you need to be aware of when looking at a condominium. So let's break this down. All right, so this is going to be the first section, right? So this is Chapter 11, Section 12 on condominiums, effective February 22nd, 2019, okay? So on here it lists, right, all condos, including site condominiums and manufactured home condominiums located in a condominium development, have to be accepted by the VA prior to the VA loan being guaranteed. Okay, that is a big important. Ineligible properties is going to be condo tells, right, that don't have a separate HOA, won't be approved, and you cannot do co-ops with these types of loans. Another big confusion in the veteran community and real estate community is that they will look at FHA's website and then they'll call back and say, hey, I saw this on the FHA's website. We're good to go. Condos approved. That is not the case. You'll notice on VA's website that they do have HUD accepted FHA condo approvals, but those condos have to be resubmitted for a new approval, right? So this is a pretty important part to this because a lot of people get confused when it comes to this aspect of it. And what the VA doesn't allow is for lenders to do what's called a spot approval. Basically what that means is, like, when you get a conventional loan, when you get a contract, a lender reaches out at that time and they will request all the condominium docs, and they'll make a lender, basically at a lender level review, they'll say, yes, the condo is good to go and we could insure it. FHA and VA are different because they require the entire building to be approved or rejected. Now, big difference on FHA loans, because they require both a blanket approval, meaning the whole condo is going to be approved. Along with that, they're also going to require that your lender do a spot approval, meaning they request all the documents again, make sure that everything's good to go, things haven't shifted, and the condo's ineligible. That's why I think there's a lot of fear around the FHA loan, because even though the building's approved, you may still not be able to use it. Now with VA loans, the cool part is that you just have to submit the building, and again, even if it get denied, you can still submit a waiver in that building. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about a list of VA approved condominiums. All this is on the VA's website, which has been updated. So let me show you guys what that looks like. I already went ahead and took a look at some places while I was searching. All right, so this is the official website, and I'll also drop it down in the link below. So let me walk you through how to search this this maze in the process. What you're gonna notice first off, as we get this question all the time, is that where is the address to be able to put in for the property? So that is not how you search for a condo in the VA's website. What you guys are going to do is you need to get the name of the property management, not property management, I'm sorry, that's the opposite. You need to get the name of the actual association, not the property management association. Typically, when you get the decks and bylaws or rules and regulations, right at the top, it's going to say what the condominium name is. Now, I suggest that you do not put the name in, but you can just to at least eliminate some, because there's normally a lot of condos. And I'm going to give you guys an example of this, okay? You're not going to select the regional loan office because you most likely know the state that you're purchasing. And so here today, we're talking about Florida and its requirements, okay? So you can just take a look at it, right? Just submit it and see how many condos come back. So this VA will tell you that there's 5,443 condos as of today that are listed on the website. Now, these can be approved or they can be denied, right? You'll see some of these accepted without conditions, right? This is just the first page. Pending, that means they never finished it. And then you have a condo here that was that has been rejected by the VA, which is an important part here. So let's just look at the first couple ones that popped up. First three, right? Accepted without conditions. So one of these was approved in 2012. And I'm sure that a lot of things have changed since 2012 in the condo association, okay? But the VA, once a condo is approved, it's approved for life, right? So this should also be a red flag for you because you need to be reviewing certain documents or at least request a condo questionnaire, because guess what? Lenders do not need to do that once a condo is VA approved. I think that's the downside where veterans are focusing in on, well, we need to only look at condos that are VA approved, which just straight up limits you on what you can do with your benefits, and you don't need to do that. You guys can always reach out to me. Always happy to help and walk you through that process. We're licensed to do loans, and we do the condo approvals. Like I actually do it myself. Reach out to the association, get everything for you. So you can literally buy any condo you want, approved, rejected, whatever. As long as it's not the Condotel or a co-op, you can use your VA loan with that waiver. All right, so back to this, right? So these accepted without conditions, right? You're good to go, but still you want to be able to review it. And also I want you to take a look at this condo. It was submitted, and people will also say, oh, the VA approval process is horrible. It takes 90 days to complete. And this is like as of like this month, right? Where I've talked to people, other lenders because their clients are like, no, with David, what you say, 90% of it is the opposite of what other people say. Well, there's a reason why we have the channel, because we want to educate you guys on what goes on. And a lot of this stuff is in the VA Handbook as well, right? But it's also experience of working with these and how to actually make it work. That makes a huge difference, okay? Now you're going to see what this property here is. It says pending. That basically means they submitted documents, but they didn't submit everything, so it's still in this limbo status. You can still buy this condo, by the way. A lender like myself will just basically go in and just resubmit the documents, get an approval, get a denial, and you're good to go. The other part here is you're going to see rejected. So let me go back 1 second. So the condo approval process for time length, look at this, 8 days. And that's typical. Sometimes we see them in 24 hours, 48 hours. Normally the max we see them is 3 weeks. So you can still technically close within a 30-day window without even having anything. This condo was rejected. Now this one did take a little bit longer, a lot longer to do. And that's most likely because the lender or if you hire a third party, which by the way, do not do that because you'll be spending, anywhere from, $750 to $1,500 to do that. The stuff is free, right? Work with us, we can do it for free. But normally this process should be a lot longer. But here that was rejected most likely because it just took them so long to submit documents. And we've seen that too many times to even count. So I'm going to just shoot down the list a little bit further. Just take a look at some of these additional ones. Florida does have a lot of rejected ones. And to see, like, this one's HUD accepted, right? So this condo would have to be resubmitted for VA condo approval or denial. But they just have a lot of rejections because it's there's a couple things that deny a condo for approval. One primary thing is having leasing restrictions, right? So if they have a cap of 20% rental restrictions, well, the VA is going to deny it. Or you have to be grandfathered in to lease your property, you're going to get denied, which is the opposite of what you read online. And I encourage you, go on with your favorite search engine, search VA condo restrictions, and you're going to see no more than 50% rental, no more than 50% investment properties in the condo. Guess what? That's not even real, right? That doesn't even exist because the VA doesn't have a minimum. They want you to be able to rent your property. A condo could be 99% rented in a 100 unit building, and you as a veteran can purchase in that unit as a primary residence. There's no restriction on that, okay? So they're looking at leasing restrictions and primarily the right of first refusal. Those are the two big ones. There's a lot more that go into that. Like we did one recently in another state where, again, they were like absolutely not, rejected. Lender was also saying like we reached out to the VA. They said absolutely we're not going to accept it. And guess what? We closed the other week. So all of it's possible. You just have to work with the right team. All right, now let me skip back to the VA handbook and let's talk about the approval process and how that works and what you need. So typically what you're going to need in this process is a lender's going to need access to Weebly VA to be able to actually upload all the documents in this process. And I'm also going to touch on some of the things that are confusing for people when going through it that I also hear on this, okay? So all properties, no matter if they're a condo, they need to be submitted. Planned unit developments do not need submission. And I want to explain the difference because a lot of people get confused on this, causing them to find out a week before closing that, hey, this is a condo and not a planned unit development. The big confusion around this is understanding what or actually, let me step back. Townhomes. That doesn't exist in the VA. Okay, townhomes is not a real type of loan. It's a type of construction. A townhome typically is going to either be an attached single-family home. It's going to be a planned unit development, almost like a subdivision, but they're row homes, townhomes, or it's going to be considered a condominium. Now, most of the time when we're looking at this stuff, it is a condominium, but it may not note that in the decks and bylaws or anywhere else. And then again, a week before closing, you get all the documents from the association and you're like, oh man, this is a condominium. Now what do we do? This is where I get a lot of phone calls from people. So, but again, thank you for reaching out because if it wasn't for you reaching out to us, we wouldn't be able to help you and get you into these properties, okay? So even detached single-family homes can be condos. I've run into those. So just make sure that you guys are paying attention to that system, okay? This just kind of goes through the reference point. Actually, you know what? Let me go back up top because it's going to list what documents are actually needed for the condominium. Okay, so before we go into the next piece, which I'll show you guys, here's basically what's needed to get a condo approved. Now, this is pretty simple. Associations already have all this, right? Declarations, bylaws. Now, if you don't have bylaws, the association does need to confirm that they do not, declarations, bylaws, but rules and regulations, not every association has them. They want a copy of the plat map. Meeting minutes are important for you and for the VA. Typically, they look at the last two, but we've also seen them accept it without the meeting minutes. This is also where you can see if there's special assessments coming up, all that fun jazz. So make sure you read it because you'll see like, oh, we're planning on getting bids on something. Well, that's also an indicator that there might be some special assessments coming up. Budget, they're definitely going to want to take a look at. Special assessment letter, if there is a special assessment, they want to look at it. If there's any litigation in the building, listen, guys, a litigation is fine in a condo. It all happens. People not paying their association dues, so the association sues the homeowner. Homeowner sues the association for something they did. No big deal. The one thing that you really do run into problems with is if you have construction defects and then you have something from the city that's condemning the building or something along those lines. With structural issues, then at that point, yes, you're going to have an issue. And you can also buy new construction with your VA home loan as well. So we actually do the approval for a builder because we're doing that right now. So again, it's something that you can do. There is no issues with it. You still need to get a regular appraisal with a condo approval. And typically, if it's on the second floor or higher, you don't need to get a termite inspection, but that can vary based on that. All right, so that's kind of wraps up that part. So let me pop over back to this piece. And I'm going to share with you guys kind of what one of these statements that they have that causes a lot of confusion. The use of an attorney opinion. You don't need that, all right? And we'll have people say, well, this is a big holdup for the veteran because we need to get this attorney review opinion letter. You don't need it. Lender just submits it as normal. The actual VA has an attorney that's going to review it. So basically, to walk you through the overall process, you go under contract on the property. The lender at that point is going to reach out to the condo association and request that list that we just talked about a little bit ago, right? They email them list, and that's probably the biggest holdup in a transaction is getting that list from the association. And then sometimes they have automated ones, which are great, but they're also really expensive. So lender gets all the documents, they upload everything to the VA, right? That's day one. The next day, the VA will register that in that condo portal. So you're going to see that it's going to say pending and it's going to have the date. So you know, yes, the condo was submitted to the VA. Because as a side note, guys, I get people that will say the condo was denied by the VA. They'll send me like a snippet. I know this happened a couple months ago. I was mind blown. I went into the VA's portal and guess what? They never submitted it to the VA. What they did is they did an internal review and they just said, hey, it's not eligible. That's mind blowing. Make sure that you're not doing that. Make sure you're doing a double tap on making sure that the building was submitted. Now, once the lender submits it, there's somebody at the VA that in processes that paperwork to be reviewed by the attorney. So one of two things happen. They review the documents and then they push it up to the attorney for review. Or what's going to happen is they're going to kick it back and say, look, you missed these documents. And then they're going to say, oh, okay, back to the loan, back to whoever's managing it, which is normally a condo department. And I always say, look, if they have a condo department, it's not going to be good. It's going to take forever. That's why it goes 60 to 90 days. Because if the VA rejects something or they say, hey, we need something updated, they have to respond to it, right? So it's like the more layers you have, the longer something takes, right? This is why we eliminate that process by just working with us. We handle all of that, right? So if they come back and say, hey, we need this updated, they need to re-update that, and then that processor at the VA will submit it to their attorney for review. Then when that attorney will review it, same thing can happen. They'll look at it and say, you're missing these documents, we need these. So we recently had that, and they had a 48-hour turn time. So it was pretty good for getting the condo approval. Now, but again, at that attorney level, they're going to either deny the VA loan or they're going to, not deny the VA loan. They're going to approve the condo without conditions or they're going to reject the condo. That rejection generates a letter back to the lender. That lender is going to be able then to reach out to you and say, hey, we can do a waiver on this condominium. These are the restrictions that exist in the letter. And we just basically duplicate the letter. You sign off that you waive your rights to it. Now, a couple important things to note on that. Not all lenders can do the condo waivers because their either backend has to be able to accept these and still be able to process the loan. Remember, the building is still denied, but they're giving you an exception for the unit that you're purchasing. Now, you typically, from my understanding, you have a 2-year window from the time a building was rejected for you to submit a letter without resubmitting all the documents. Outside of that time, even if somebody used the VA loan 3 years ago in that rejected building, which they really didn't do those waivers back then, but just for example, right? Let's say in the future, if another veteran came into that building, you would have to resubmit all the documents, get it denied or rejected, and then you have to resubmit the waiver. But again, that process is super simple to go through. So keep that in mind. Don't discourage yourself. Feel free, reach out. A couple things you guys need to be aware of when it comes to what you should be looking at when it comes to condominium documentation. So one, you want to look at reserves, right? Because just because the VA loan lets you pretty much buy anything that you want, you have to look at the resellability, that's a word, the resale value or reselling your property, okay? Because you want some type of standard that you just don't want to say, well, hey, people can only use the VA loan to purchase in this building. It doesn't make it as marketable, right? You want to look at what are the conventional standards for a condominium, and then does that condo currently meet those standards? Because it's, again, well, down the road, you want to be able to resell it. So one thing is going to be looking at reserves, how much the association has in its account. Are they correctly at least accounting for 10% of the association dues towards reserves? Now, Florida, for whatever reason, from my experience, has been a little bit. They really don't manage it well. That's why there's a whole separate set of rules. Typically, people want to pay special assessments. This is this is my experience with it. Also, you need to look at delinquency rates, like how many people are not paying their association dues. Because in a 100-unit building, if 40 people or 40% of a building is not paying HOA dues, you might be in a bad position, okay? Because now your association dues go up and they're not paying. That's a problem. Commercial space, VA doesn't care about that. And by the way, guys, VA doesn't really care about this stuff, I guess, except for litigation, because that piece, again, if it's structural, they're going to have an issue with it. Commercial space, typically 35% on most loans. VA, you could get a waiver on that. Single entity ownership, conventional loans, and FHA loans do have restrictions on that. That's basically where one owner owns like 40% of a building. With a VA loan, you can still purchase in that building if you want. That's why when you look at buildings that say non-warrantable, okay, they most likely don't really understand what that means. And I'm going to explain that. A building that is warrantable meets, let's just say, Fannie Freddie guidelines for being able to purchase in there, right? It doesn't mean, that's what most people think, right, in general. They don't think FHA and VA because they're like, oh, they're just too restrictive. Why would we even go through that process? But the thing is that you typically can use a VA loan in these non-warrantable buildings. So non-warrantable basically means it doesn't meet Fannie and Freddie requirements for condos. But a building can also be warrantable and non-warrantable at the same time. So just because it can't meet Fannie Mae's requirements, it can meet VA's requirements. So it's just another option, like when you guys are out there looking, or you might be selling your condo and you're like, well, how do I make it more marketable? Well, getting a VA condo approval on it is one thing, but the video today is about, hey, how do I get into home ownership and purchase a condo using that amazing VA home loan? So if you guys have questions, drop them down in the comment section. Always happy to help. You can also schedule a call with me down below. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys soon.